Hello, welcome to the Health In Show, an affiliate program of Homeopathy World Community. You've come to the right place to tune in and participate with your comments and questions. Love is the greatest healer of all, but sometimes, in order to change our emotions, we must take action in other spheres of our lives. We speak with experts in alternative and complementary health fields and hope you will benefit in some small or great way. Remember, you are wherever your thoughts are. Make sure your thoughts are where you want to be. Welcome, everyone. A gentle, good day. Hope you're enjoying my flute music. And it used to be ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba, get in there and dance, but now we're changing our tune to something more harmonious. I think you get enough energy from the sun right now in the summertime. And we are going to welcome our guest, Dr. Jeff Feynman, to our show today. We're so fortunate to have him. Our co-host, Dr. Deepak Sharma, may tune in via audio, and I see we already have tons of guests on the chat. So if you have comments or questions, you can call in in the United States at 919-518-9773 and on Skype at Computers2K Voice. And I'm going to introduce our guest, Dr. Jeffrey Feynman, a certified veterinarian who works and lives in Connecticut, has helped thousands and thousands of pets overcome illnesses, allergies, and other immune disorders in order to lead happy, healthy lives. And because social networks are so amazing, that is how we got connected on Twitter. Otherwise, I would never have met him. And he has a BA, VMD, CVH, and holds both molecular biology and veterinary degrees from the University of Pennsylvania. Dr. Jeff was the first dual degree recipient at Penn State in this prestigious university scholar program. I'm sure he's going to tell us maybe a little bit about his research, if he's doing anything new or any kind of discoveries that he's made along the way in his long academic and professional career, dealing with endocrinology at the Animal Medical Center in New York City as well. He also went through a competitive internship in the clinical medicine at the Angell Memorial Animal Hospital in Boston. After 14 months of intensive clinical experience, he decided to postpone his planned academic career in order to help individual patients. This is when he became alarmed at the increasing rates of allergy, cancer, and other degenerative diseases. And we want to know about that. We want to learn about why this is happening in our communities. It's not just in the human population, it's all animals in the whole animal kingdom. So he tried lots and lots of different holistic treatments, and I'm sure a lot of them worked to a certain point. And then he began to investigate beyond the clinical nutrition, supplementation, herbal therapy, and minimal vaccination. I want to put a big asterisk next to that because that's an issue we're going to talk a lot about. And then he finally came upon homeopathy, and I think he's going to tell us the rest of the story from there. So one other thing, because social networks keep us all together, this morning I just came across a quote from Patty Farmer, who said, "Successful people have a sense of gratitude. Unsuccessful people have a sense of entitlement." This is an unknown author, but it kind of like struck me to say, is there any way we can apply that today?
Wow, well, thank you so much for having me, and that is a great quote. But you send me that write that down. Just email that to me.
Sure.
Now
Successful
remember.
people have a sense of gratitude.
Right.
Unsuccessful people have a sense of entitlement.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. Actually, to respond to what you said about research, nowadays I'm totally out of academia.
Okay.
So the answer right now is no. I don't have any new or exciting research to share. Pretty much everything you talked about is in the past, and it's all part of how I got to homeopathy in the first place. Through research science, then general holistic care, then through reading the skeptic information about homeopathy, and going back to the original sources that basically showed that homeopathy was saving most of the patients back in the era before antibiotics. The homeopaths would have 90% or more cure rate, and the allopaths, the conventional docs, were having 90% or more deaths. Actually, some of the diseases at that time, cholera, plague, were closer to 99 or 100%. So I realized that maybe something was going on in those pre-scientific medical days. So I began to read and then research on myself, just playing around with what I learned. Saw some amazing responses, including resolution of my lifelong allergies. I was actually treating some other problem and the allergies went away. Then I started treating my own pets, and the rest is history. Probably about 6 months later, I was in Dr. Pitcairn's course about the introduction to veterinary homeopathy.
He is very well known around the animal community, Dr. Pitcairn.
He has trained most of us in the U.S. At least, most of our beginning training started with Dr. Pitcairn.
Right. So another thing that I came across this morning was I wanted to, really find I have two quotes. One that is just joyful, and one of you put that up right now. That is the one that's, this one. This is a cartoon that Michael Todd showed me this morning on Facebook. And basically, this is the answer to why cats will never have an organized religion, because in their minds they're all going their separate way, and they say the little bubble, if you can't read it, wherever the cat is in the room, is saying, "I am God, I am God, I am God." And so, every cat or every one of your pets has their own different kind of personality. And that is an understanding that homeopaths have, that in order to approach your pet and keep them well, you have to find that connection to them. So how do you guide your clients, the pet owners, to care for their pets, which are very much like family members?
Well, I usually recommend really just one thing overall, which is try to keep your pets as close to their natural state as possible. So
Very interesting.
So first of all, cats are the center of the universe. So yeah.
You agree with that? They are the center.
Well, they agree with that.
Well, I'm just having a picture of a sphinx right now in my mind in Egypt. They're very regal and can be aloof. But some of them, need lots of attention, too.
Yeah. And there is a cat breed called the Sphinx for just that reason. But staying close to nature means eating the food that, is their natural diet. It means getting outside means getting in the sun, living a holistic lifestyle like a dog was meant to be, not being over drugged, not being on commercial food as the only diet.
What kind of diet?
Not being on commercial dog
Commercial.
food,
Okay.
processed foods. I mean, dogs and cats in the wild hunt and kill and eat their prey.
Okay.
That's pretty much the natural diet.
I can understand that for cats because they have that little bit of that wild element, and especially if cats are not only an indoor cat, but they go outside and hunt and do stuff. But I think about dogs as being so domesticated over the centuries that have they changed in some way? That are you saying they should not be getting this commercial product?
Oh, that's a really good question, and I'm not sure anyone knows if they've actually changed. There's no question that we have caused them to change. However, when you start from the place of a good natural diet, when they're young, they never need to be on a commercial food. So, my experience is, they have not changed. Most of my new puppies and kittens start right away, and patients, not as well as the ones I own, start right away with meats in variety, so they do not get the same food every day the way most pets do if they're being fed, a commercial dog or cat food. Because to answer your question, I think the natural diet for many dogs when they first became domesticated was garbage. They were scavengers. They would eat whatever they could find. So why then can't they eat the variety nowadays, unless, like you said, there's actually been some physiologic change that occurred?
That's really great because I'm not a dog owner. I've been a cat owner and plenty of birds, and actually pony. So I don't have the experience with dogs that you do and many of the guests do. But this is really fascinating because people would be, I know that like horses, they need entertainment. They need to be stimulated in order to be healthy. And same with cats. They need their play toys, and you bat things around and run around the house, and little, what's the kind of herb that they love? Catnip, that balls that they can run around the house. I mean, so in terms of their food also, they need this type of variety. So do you give them table food? I know that this show is not supposed to be specifically about diet, but it just seemed to be interesting to me.
I think the answer with cats, because cats tend to be pickier eaters than dogs. So I think that the number one warning for cats is to try and stay away from the dry cat foods, which are the most commonly fed foods for cats nowadays. So whether it's canned food in variety or sharing the food that you have in your house or raw meat, I mean, cats kill and eat bugs and mice and birds as part of their natural diet. So, unfortunately, cats, what they're willing to eat is what usually limits us to what we can feed them. Because cats are famous for going on hunger strikes, as you probably well know. If you don't feed them what they like, they're not going to eat.
Oh, they'll go on a hunger strike. I've known of cats that have really lost a tremendous amount of weight, and the owner doesn't know what to do. So, I mean, is this part of your entire program? It seems like you have this umbrella idea of prevention is better than having to deal with illness along the way. So, by the time a cat has already gone on a hunger strike, I only think about a person in prison goes on a hunger strike. So, what's happening there, and how can we prevent even the place where the cat is going to do that?
That actually, appetite is one of what I call my big ticket items. So appetite, energy, mood are all related to the internal balance that basically we treat when we treat with homeopathy. My experience is that as symptoms, and again, we haven't even talked at all about homeopathy yet, but as the symptoms of the individual become treated with drugs or otherwise, my experience is that's when the pets get pickier, they eat less, their energy is lower. In fact, there's something that I witnessed called the suppression syndrome, which is the more you suppress, the worse you get in those big ticket items.
So, what is a person supposed to do? I mean, what are they?
Well, follow the first recommendation, which is to stay as close to nature as possible. And the way you can do that with the treatments, of a cystitis or a skin problem or pretty much anything, is to work with the body instead of working against the body. So anytime an antibiotic or an anti-inflammatory or anything that works anti, which means against the body, is being used, you're not helping the matter, you're just treating the symptom.
Right. So that means that a pet owner has got to be educated in some way. They have to get out there and read if their veterinarian is not telling them. I mean, if the veterinarian is saying you need to get these annual vaccinations without any kind of alternative suggestions, if your veterinarian is saying, okay, my dog has scratching a lot and has fleas, let's just give them some steroids or put some flea stuff on them. I mean, if they're not getting the broad scope of alternatives, the pet owner is going to have to do that on their own and then begin bringing those questions in.
And that is really, really, really important as far as getting educated. And you need to ask questions, need to do some reading. I mean, part of the problem with holistic care and homeopathy in general is it does require more of you as the pet owner. It's more incumbent on you to become an educated medical consumer, because you're not necessarily going to hear it from your MD or your vet. You're going to learn about it from your neighbor or another friend, because we are outside the mainstream. Most people right now follow their doctor or their vet's advice, which is why a big part of my life right now is trying to get the word out to pet owners that there is another way to treat their pets. And as you know, we formed the Veterinary Homeopathy Consulting Group to help get the word out around the world. And
repeat the name of that veterinary what?
Well, I just have it.
And you segued perfectly, because I was going to ask you about it. I was going to ask you, I mean, what is the veterinary community doing to inform the public, to inform those who are pet owners? I mean, can you have publications in some of the big name pet product stores? I don't want to name them.
Well, I mean, I think that the general population publications are very willing to put the alternative articles. And again, I use the word alternative in quotes because it should be the mainstream. The bigger question is, will the mainstream veterinary journals publish articles about homeopathy or diet or lack of vaccines? It's just now beginning. It's really, last year, I think, was the first year ever that there were 2 articles in mainstream veterinary scientific publications about homeopathy. So it's just now getting the ball rolling, and part of the problem is that we are in such high demand that many of us don't work in academia. We don't have the time to publish, and it's very time consuming. And of course, that then doesn't make the scientific evidence available. And if it's not available, then many of the mainstream vets are not going to recommend homeopathy.
Okay, so then we need to provide for the listening public, because we have a lot of people on the chat. If you have any comments or questions, please let us know that where they can find the pertinent information. I want to let you know that Victoria, who's on the chat, says she gets her dog meat directly from the rancher who raises them. The price is right. They eat a variety of meats. That's 80%, 10% organs, and 10% bone. They eat grass-fed meat with no GMO grains. That's really a big ticket item. No GMO grains. And their diet is the raw prey model. I hunt. She said, I hunt, and they eat. That's pretty cute. Let's see, who else has mentioned something? Dr. Deepak Sharma of New Delhi, India, the Orbis Clinic, says, I treated only one pet, a dog who was suffering from a kind of hepatitis. On clinical basis he prescribed chelidonium, which is a liver remedy, in only a 3x potency, which is we consider a tissue salt or a cell salt. And within 15 days, his condition was normal, and the veterinarian was in shock. So hepatitis, we think that is untreatable in humans, basically. I mean, just you're on maintenance and you're not going to get a cure. So have you had these kinds of experiences yourself?
I think every veterinary homeopath has. And, speaking about liver is a great example because liver has this huge capacity to regenerate. One of the cases that is in my publication back pocket right now is a dog with liver disease that was staged at a referral clinic, actually a university-based clinic. They did ultrasound, they did all the blood work, and it had liver disease secondary to gallstones. After a remedy, actually a couple of remedies over time, the liver disease went away and the gallstones went away. And yet the only option the specialist is still willing to give these people is surgery.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The number of gallbladder and removals in humans has increased incredibly as well. So I didn't realize that this is a problem with animals too. And so let's go back to your main idea. How do we, I think I'm going to answer my own question, go back to nature. What, I think it's going to get embedded in there. Go back to nature. So if you do that, you're going to prevent having gallstones and liver problems and hepatitis, and dogs also have diabetes and are on insulin. I mean, how many pets do you see that have these problems, and what's going on?
I would say that most of the pets that get referred to me have those problems. I would say, on the other hand, that most of the pets that begin prevention early never develop those problems. In people, I think the stats are over 80% of the diseases, whether it's diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, cancer, obesity, are secondary to lifestyle. So diet, not exercising properly, and that is, or at all, that is accentuated in our pets because of their lifespans. person may not get sick till they're 50, but a pet is not going to be living till they're 50. When I was a student in vet school back in the 70s and the 80s, if we had a sick pet on the wards, I'd say that cancer or other organ failure diseases did not even enter the differential diagnosis. Until they're 8 to 10 years of age, and even then it would be low on the differential. Now, you see a 1-year-old pet with cancer, and that's common. I mean, I see them almost every day. And it's unfortunate that, as far as I know, no oncologists are giving their clients the option of treating with homeopathy or anything else for that matter. I'm treating one dog right now. The owner is extremely well educated. She's actually a university professor and has worked out her own protocol along with homeopathy for treating the dog. The dog is doing great. The oncologist basically is like, well, what she asked him, what can she do to help prevent, any further problems? Here's the answer. We wait and see, if there's a problem, then we treat it if it comes up. And that, I think, is the crux of our problem. We are in our model, our medical model, is just incorrect.
So it seems like the pet owners are now the teachers of the veterinarians because they're out there searching for a new model. Victoria is asking, do you think the vaccines and kibble are causing all these health issues? And okay, a lot of people want to know the answer to that question.
I would say no. Causing, no.
Okay.
Are they triggers? Are they contributing? Yes, I would say so. I see more and more pets that just changing the diet and avoiding vaccinations gets rid of the symptoms. But think back 30 years or 40 years when pets were not getting suppressed and vaccinated the way they are now. Dogs were living well into their teens. 15, 16 was not that unusual. Nowadays, it's pretty unusual to see a big dog that gets older than 10. The geriatric dog population now, I think they've lowered the number, and they lower it every year or two, they being the AVMA. I think it may be down to 6 or 7.
What's a 6 or 7?
A dog is now considered geriatric at that age.
So they're changing the numbers. They're not changing their behavior. It's sort of like the medical community said that you have high blood pressure at such and such a number, and now you have high blood pressure when you have a lower number, and cholesterol, and this and that. And the numbers keep changing to suit something, and maybe you can fill that blank in. And then I'll maybe you can answer that, and then we have a bunch more comments on the chat today.
Sure, great. The numbers have to keep changing because they're based on normal. And normal keeps getting pushed over and over and over to the end. That's what the bell curve there, the first bell curve is showing, is that normal is a variety. It's up and down. It's a sine wave. It could be shown in a sine wave. But when you go to the end of normal, you have super high blood pressure, that's going to skew the curve. If most people, and this is happening actually in dogs and cats with blood work as well, if most are having one normal, then normal becomes a new number.
The new normal for your pets. And Our producer Amnon made a comment to me that humans also the same thing, and our number for lifespan supposedly is we're getting older, we're living longer, but I really question that, because I feel as if the younger generations, their amount of illnesses, chronic and very devastating autoimmune illnesses, such on the rise that they are not going to be living as long as my generation and your generation. Do you agree with that, or have a comment?
I agree totally with, we are living longer, but we're not living as well. We're living with more chronic degenerative diseases. What medicine has got better at is treating those diseases with newer and better drugs.
Please qualify the word better.
Better able to act physiologically, better able to lower the blood pressure, better able to address the one little aspect of the disease that's being examined in the research.
Right. So they're just manipulating the numbers. We're just like plugging in like a little digital like the cars today, the automobiles today. The person, the mechanic used to be like the doctor to the car. They could open the lid and get in there and really know how all the wheels and bells and everything worked. And now they plug it in and get a diagnostic, and then they'll just do some kind of tweaking thing. So like doctors too and vets too, they just doing it a totally different way to make these numbers change instead of the whole person. We have a caller? Do we have a caller? No. Why don't we talk a little bit? Dr. Sharma, did you have a comment? No. He's with his clients.
I'm just gonna stop you right there, because say again what you just said. I'm sorry, I forgot.
I was talking about tweaking all the numbers, and we're like a little digital plug in. We're not holistically being viewed.
I love that mechanics metaphor, because that's exactly what's happening nowadays. We are not being taught in vet and medical school to look at the bigger picture. Vets and MDs being taught to run every test. You're sick not based on how you are. You're sick based on your blood work, your x-rays, your CAT scan. So you may be overall doing great, but your numbers are looking bad. And that drives me crazy, is that you can see a patient, human or animal, moving along and doing better and better, but their numbers are not improving, so we need to add a new drug. But the reality is, if you look at the bigger picture, they are improving. Mm-hmm. And we're relying more and more on these reductionistic methods for looking at health, whether it's blood work, whether it is, again, X-ray, CAT scan, MRI. Doctors used to spend hours, some doctors would spend hours with their patients examining and taking detailed histories, but no longer.
They're no longer doing that. They're just looking at a piece of paper in front of a readout. So can you move along and tell us something more about homeopathy and how that plays a role in your practice? On the chat, Dr. Kulbashan from India says he's treated dogs suffering with coat problems, epistasis, worms, infertility. So I don't think he has a animal practice, but he must be getting owners who have pets that he's helping out.
And again, it goes back to what you said at the beginning, what I said at the beginning, which is staying with nature, working with the body. And unfortunately, there's a huge divide. So what I'm going to say now is totally non-medical, non-scientific. This is not the reality of modern day. And again, modern day is in quotes. medicine, and that is that there is an energetic principle that basically governs all of our physiologic processes. And all that medicine does is measure the physiologic processes that are secondary to the energetic balance. What homeopathy is able to do is use those symptoms, which are a clue that the body is imbalanced energetically, use those symptoms to figure out a homeopathic remedy that will improve the balance and the symptoms go away. And that's pretty much in a nutshell what homeopathy is able to both do for simple diseases as well as chronic disease. And people say, can this be treated? Can that be treated? What I say is, if you're alive, you can be treated.
If you're alive, you can be treated. If you're breathing, if your brain is functioning, if your heart is beating, you can be treated. And that would be depending upon how far gone you are. Palliation via homeopathy to make you more comfortable, or actually moving toward cure. And do you have any example to talk about that would be quite surprising, what we would not expect to be a recovery?
Well, probably the most
I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, the most common, first of all, I just want to take a step back to the education. I mean, if a pet owner or any person, pets or no pets, is not looking at life holistically, they're not looking at cure, palliation, suppression. When those are not homeopathy terms, those are only the three ways that the body can respond in life, or to a medicine, or to any impetus. Mm-hmm. You can either be cured of your disease, which means that your life gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and your symptoms go away, and you don't need to be on drugs.
Yay!
Or yay! that is the goal.
Or
on the opposite of that is suppression. You have the red ear. If you're a dog, you have a red ear, itchy skin. You go on steroids, you go on antibiotics or other drugs, and you do a 2-week course, it gets rid of it. But that symptom is not gone. That symptom, the underlying imbalance, is still there. Those are the pets that have the chronic itchy skin, the red ears, and they get treated every couple of months, or once a year, once or twice every couple of years. Those are the pets whose internal balance is getting worse and worse and worse, even though the symptoms are going away. So
that's really interesting viewpoint, to contrast it to how you started that entire conversation, that on the outside we're seeing the red ear or the itchy skin being suppressed due to the drugs, but on the inside we don't know what kind of turmoil or disease might be fomenting in there, even though if you're getting x-rays and other blood exam and whatnot, you're supposedly having a view of inside that you don't see with your 5 senses. So it's, and then we started off saying, take a look holistically at what's going on the outside. Is your pet in balance? Are they joyful? Are they non-aggressive? Are they communicating with you? All of these signs and symptoms that show that they're really healthy. Do they have their appetite? So it's kind of a huge contrast. So it seems to me, I'm just talking out loud, it seems to me that the animal that would have these drug suppressions, their emotional and mental state might not be so great.
And that is why those are two of the three big ticket items. The mental, emotional, and appetite symptoms do get worse and worse and worse as they often get worse and worse and worse And again, we can talk a little about why that doesn't always happen to every pet, but it will get worse and worse and worse as the body gets suppressed. And again, it's not that necessarily you're being suppressed, because by far the most common way that symptoms are treated nowadays is not suppression or cure, but the most common is palliation. And palliation is basically the Band-Aid syndrome, where you need to keep the Band-Aid on to keep the bleeding under control until your body heals itself. Well, your body isn't going to heal itself from hypothyroidism or allergies, which, by the way, are curable, and you can actually resolve the symptoms without continued drugs. But, and again, that's outside mainstream medicine, so the dermatologists will, most of them, tell you that allergies are not curable. And by treating the balance internally, you're not palliating. You're not treating the symptoms. You're treating the whole. But again, there's a huge, just like you said, there's a huge chasm between what is being treated by reductionistic medicine nowadays versus holistic medicine. So reductionistic, reducing the car to the individual parts, and we only know how it's sick by plugging it into the machine, versus looking at the whole bigger picture of the individual. Is the individual healthy? Is the car healthy? People, pets are not machines. We cannot be reduced to a liver, to a brain, to a heart. It may be manifesting symptoms in those organs, but if we don't treat the underlying cause of the symptoms, and I sound like a broken record, it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And that's what homeopathy and holistic life is about.
We have a couple of questions. One I had was regarding allergies. It seems to be your introduction to homeopathy for your own allergies, and you say they're gone. How do we know that a pet has an allergy? And if we just remove the triggers, would that be enough, or did they have the same types of problems of emotional issues, the dynamic relationships in the families, or some other trigger could be causing it?
It is all related, just like you said, whether it's emotional, mental, dietary, vaccine-wise. So that's why we need to look, especially in allergies, which is really just an early immune imbalance. In my mind, allergies on one end of the spectrum, and immune failure, cancers, are the other end of the spectrum. And that, in my model again, is why, and I hate to pick on the breed, but that's why the golden retriever that has the highest incidence of skin itching and red ears and allergic symptomatology, that's why they're one breed that we see huge amounts of cancer and other organ problems. Hypothyroid, which is actually an autoimmune problem, which is the immune system producing antibodies attacking the thyroid, which then starts working less and less well, which is why they end up having to get palliated with daily medication to supplement their thyroid. And I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Kind of. I also was really interested, for pet owners, are your animals going to sneeze and have runny, itchy eyes and all the same things that humans do, or are they going to have a different set of symptoms to demonstrate that, to let you know that they are having an allergic reaction? Will they have anaphylactic shock? What is going on?
Pets do have anaphylaxis, but dogs manifest their allergies differently than people, differently than cats. Actually, every species manifest their immune imbalance differently. Dogs, the most common thing you see in dogs is an external manifestation of itching or skin problems or hot spots or red ears, ear infections. I mean, dogs should be able to live their life however they have a natural life, whether it involves swimming, whether it involves being out in the grasses, whether it involves being Connecticut versus being down south where there aren't so many trees that are blooming. So we're not treating the triggers. We're trying to look at the bigger picture. So I mean, yes, you can see some runny eyes and sneezing and allergy type sinusitis type symptoms in dogs, but usually they're skin related. It's usually probably by itching is probably the most common thing.
Okay, so that kind of leads me to ask, are there a top collection of homeopathic remedies? I mean, the first thing you think about, red, itching, inflammation, you think of sulfur. I mean, as a homeopathic remedy, is that a major remedy that's used for these animals? And are there a collection of, let's say, the top 5 that are most used?
It is, but every animal is treated, every allergic animal has to be treated as an individual. So there really is no protocol for an allergic pet. There actually are no protocols in homeopathy. My experience is if you give that badly allergic pet sulfur, he's going to blow up his allergy symptoms. It's actually going to make them much worse.
Ooh.
Now, yeah. So sulfur would, however, that being said, sulfur would be one of the top remedies that we would use in allergies. But again, we don't have the time to go into how those two statements go together. My experience, again, is that if you don't treat the suppression, and that may be the drug suppression, that may be the individual's response to various treatments, if you don't treat that first, that you're never going to really be able to treat the individual, because what's going to happen is if you give that sulfur to a pet, it's going to get worse, and that client is going to say, oh, homeopathy doesn't work, I'm not ever going back to that doctor. And that's what, that's why persevering throughout the holistic process is so important. You need to change your mindset from the quick fix mentality to looking at the bigger picture. Is my pet's allergies really getting under control such that he's able to live a more happy and full life, or is he just not itching as much?
So it sounds, this is kind of a complicated, and you have to have a lot of experience or training to use homeopathy with your pets, to actually teach a vet that you don't just start off with sulfur. Are you using, it sounds like you might be using homeoprophylaxis or isopathy or something to handle the suppression of the drugs and the vaccines. Is that true?
If you're referring to me, no, that's not true.
Okay.
I treat the allergic individual like I treat any other individual, and that is based on what the body is telling me at that time. So it's not because he had steroids, we put him on this remedy, or he had this, so we put him on that remedy. But every individual is going to react to what they were exposed differently, and I treat the reaction of the individual. So it's really, there is no this for that, except in the more acute situations. Let's say your healthy pet gets an injury. Well, you're pretty safe to give them arnica right after the injury. because Arnica is going to treat that bruise sensation that almost all pets get after a bad injury.
Dr. Sharma, did you have any questions or comments for what we've been reviewing so far?
Basically, I have really do not very big knowledge about the pets and its homeopathic medicine and how to handle the pets and how to prescribe them. But I really realized that I mentioned that I have a fear of dog, and I always think if he bites me, then I will infect it with the rabies. I always thought that. What are the homeopathic medicine who prevent us to with the rabies? That is the only question from me.
For humans or for pets? You're asking about rabies?
For humans. For humans.
For humans.
Yes. I want to ask a preventive remedy for the human.
Well, he's a veterinarian. I don't know that the question that Dr. Sharma has was, he's afraid of dogs, and he's afraid because, and I can understand this, if you get bit, you're going to get rabies. And so does a dog have a thought process, the same thing, that if another dog bites me, I'm going to get rabies?
Not as far as we know. You'd have to ask the dog if they're thinking about that. But
ask the cat.
I know that he mentioned that he doesn't treat pets, but I don't treat people for the most part, and aside from myself. But homeopathy, as you well know, is a totally non-speciated medicine. So I, as a vet homeopath, can treat virtually any species, as can you, as can any well-trained homeopath. And the only proviso is that you know what is common for that species. Because if you're treating the common symptoms...
Did you use any kind of medicine for the rabies in the pets?
Rabies. Are you seeing many pets having rabies, as a matter of fact? Is that also on the increase?
I've never seen it in almost 30 years. I do know people that have seen usually rabid stray animals, a stray cat or a dog. It is on the increase in the wild population. The raccoons, possums, any mammal or warm-blooded animal can get and potentially transmit rabies. So it is a public health concern. But life in general, whether we're talking about rabies in India or Lyme disease in Connecticut, it's a risk-benefit. My odds of acquiring rabies when I go outside are not too good. My odds of walking outside and acquiring Lyme disease are much better. So when you talked about prophylaxis for disease, if I were in India, I would be much more worried about rabies in the stray dogs that are on the street throughout India.
So in other words, he has good reason. I mean, it's not without cause that he has a fear, because there is a higher rate or population of dogs that have the wild dogs running around would have contagious disease. Whereas here in America, the incidence of Lyme disease has really rapidly increased everywhere, at least along the East Coast, I know. So do animals also have this Lyme disease? Is this a problem?
Another great question, because Lyme is epidemic in animals. And is it really epidemic, or is it being diagnosed as epidemic? And that is, again, another topic that we could spend an hour on. You can read my thoughts on my website about Lyme disease. What I think in our last few minutes, because that is a huge question, Lyme and Ehrlichia and Anaplasma and West Nile, all these infectious diseases are becoming more and more and more common nowadays because, in my opinion, the overall level of our immune status is getting lower and lower and lower. So, are the diseases, are the organisms real? Yes, they are. Are the organisms going to affect two individuals the same way? No, they are not. If you have a strong, healthy immune system, then the odds are you're not going to get a life-threatening, often lifelong chronic disease from Lyme disease. You're going to get an acute infection, you're going to manifest the disease, and you're going to get rid of it. And again, that's very controversial nowadays because there's so many people with chronic Lyme.
Right. So you're not attributing it to global climate change, the change in our temperatures and the increase in kind of weather and things like that, but it's more the state of our own personal immunity. And this is something that I'm really interested and involved with, is improving and building our immune system based upon your overall theme of prevention through natural living and removing, not suppressing with toxins in the environment, drugs, vaccinations, and eating naturally. So that would mean things like not eliminating sugars and things like that. Probably animals shouldn't be having it, and why we create treats with sugars, I don't know. I assume that some manufactured products have that. I want to let folks to know that you can find Dr. Feynman on homevet.com. He has an incredible website with tons of information, resources, and he also has a forum there, which I found a couple of very interesting things going on. Something about, they talk about natural pet products and a warning that there is a pet food recall, and I don't know how often that kind of thing happens for pet food. You know, you're not supposed to be, based on the healthy living, you're not supposed to be giving your pets this dry food, but if you do, to put the label on the box or the container that you dump it into so that you have a date and information. Just I say just cut it out and tape it on. Probably would be good for our own food too. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of issues. There's talk about neutering. There's talk about different kinds of treatments on the forum, things like that. So his website is homevet.com. Talking about next week, because we only have a minute left. And thanks everybody for being on this show. I know we had quite a lively chat going on. And next week, July 22, Monday at 11, Phyllis Georgic will be back for like the third time. She's awesome. And we're going to go in-depth about ferrum phos, iron phosphate, and whatever questions you have, she is the person with the answers. Or we can figure it out with her. Dr. Feynman, it was such a pleasure to meet and greet you and learn about your approach to taking care of animals today and your wisdom.
Well, thank you, Debbie. It was great to finally speak with you after twittering and emailing for years, basically.
That's right. We've been on there for years. And if anybody else has an idea for a guest who would be who you would love to be talking with and learn from, just send me a message at Homeopathy World Community. It's at gmail.com, and go on our Facebook. We've got tons of news about the environment, about the medical world. I just put up something brand new about placebo clinical trials, which is going to rock this world. And want to thank Victoria. There's somebody on there that I can't read their name. NICN, Pam, Dr. Sharma, Bob, Kathy, Marilyn, Karen, Kavitha, and Dr. Kubashan. And anybody else who wants to see the show later, it is archived for your viewing at any convenient time. So we're, Dr. Sharma, do you have words of wisdom? On your Skype, it always, every time I see it, it just says one word: think. And it makes me think.
And think and thanks. Thank you, Debbie, for all you do for spreading the word.
Also, think happy.
Think happy. Be joyful, and listen to your pets, because they are talking to you. They're giving you clues every day, whether they have a wet or a dry nose, whether they're snuggling, whether they want to hide under the bed, or whether they don't want to eat their food. They're giving you messages, and, the dynamic relationship in your family incorporates your pets. They're like a family member. And as we've spoken before, a lot of times they reflect the kind of dysfunctions or diseases that are going on within the family as well. So if you find diabetes, or if you find high blood pressure, if you find osteoporosis, what's happening with the rest of the family? So they are little angels, little messengers. All right.
Thanks
Until
again,
next week, we'll see you back again Monday at 11. I want to tell, next week, Marilyn, will she be on with me after? Okay, so next week after this show, we're going to have another show with Marilyn Shannon, Breaking Free. And I'm hoping all of our viewers will tune in and listen to her. She always has great guests on how to live a fulfilling life without limitations or restrictions. So we will see you then. Love to all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Sundays 9 a.m. till noon. Carrie's Psychic Cafe with Carrie Silkowski, Sundays 8 till 9 p.m. Health In with Debbie Bruck, Mondays 11 a.m. till noon. Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Mondays 8 till 9 p.m. Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, Wednesdays 9 till 10 p.m. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by thatvidblasterguy.com, carolinaapparel.com, and deltaforce.net.